This is the regular meeting of the Geneva 304 School District for December 15th. And I would like to welcome you all, and we're very pleased that you're with us. Bonnie, could you call the roll?
Here.
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 Thank you, Bonnie. The Pledge of Allegiance, the flag is in the back corner right there. I will lead us.
Oh,
Oh,
it's coming.
Oh, look at
there's
this.
another flag.
Mr. Baker, we appreciate you, sir.
Well, I thought the flag, there is a flag back there, but it's a state flag now that I look at it. We could be allegiant to Illinois.
Perfect, perfect. Mr. Baker is the jack of all trades. He's just on it for us. Thank you, sir. We appreciate you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There's an attendance sheet in the hall if you wish to sign in. Second item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. We have three.
No, I think you're fine. It
Okay. With three, the regular session, the executive session, and the board retreat. Was there anyone who missed one of those meetings so that we should separate them? There is?
Yeah, I missed the last.
Okay. So we need a motion to approve. Oh, well, see, I should ask Bonnie. Have you gotten any corrections? No. And I have. Are there any at this time?
There was one correction. It was just a
spelling error.
A spelling error. Yeah.
Hardly counts. In any case, motion to approve item 1 and 2 of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Bonnie?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Item 3, the board retreat of November 17. A motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Bonnie?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Could we make one change on that board retreat minutes? It says that Larry, oh, I'm sorry, that Willard was absent. I don't think he was absent.
He was.
Not
Oh.
at the not at the
not at the
retreat.
retreat.
Oh.
Not at the retreat.
The
No.
retreat has it as Matt being.
Oh,
Okay, we'll update that.
thank you, Dan.
Mhm.
Good.
Item 3, recognition, awards, presentations, and public hearings. Item 1, tradition of excellence, GHS students, girls swimming, art, ACT, girls cross country. Mr. Rogers is
Not here.
Not here.
Not here. Tonight we have two esteemed colleagues from Geneva High School. We're going to recognize some students, and as you know, the board from time to time has the opportunity to recognize some kids who've had some tremendous accomplishments. And tonight is a great example of some of the diverse ways that kids make those great accomplishments at Geneva High School. So here's how we're going to do it, gang. I think Mr. Drexler is going to start. The board will come up out front, and they'll stand out here in front of the table, so you guys want to make your way out. Mr. Drexler or Mr. Hahn, our athletic director, will brag about you for a little bit. Then you'll come up here. When your name gets called, come over here and start with Mr. Choi and greet all the board members, and I'll have a certificate for you, and then we'll have you stand up front here, and we'll do a nice photo op, and mom and dad and family can do all the paparazzi that they want to do. So, Mr. Drexler, I'll let you get started while we make our way up here.
All right, thank you very much. As Dr. Barrett indicated, we've got a variety of students tonight to recognize for academic achievement, for artistic achievement, and for athletic achievement. The first group of students, we're going to talk about the academics. First, we have, as you know, students take the ACT exam every year at Geneva High School in the spring, and the ACT season for seniors runs through the October test date. So the ACT is scored on a scale of 1 to 36, the 36 composite score being the highest possible score. And then we have 3 Geneva High School students that obtained that perfect 36, which is an incredible achievement. When you look nationally, it's usually around 1.5 million students that take the ACT every year, and 1/4 of 1% achieve a 36. So they are really in rare air in terms of their achievement on the ACT. And I think that's a reflection of, I'm sure they did a little bit of preparation for the ACT, but it's also a reflection of many years of commitment to academic excellence. So you can't really cram for the ACT. So well done to these 3 students, and I know it will serve all 3 of them very well moving forward. So the first student being recognized tonight is Landon Finale. The second student is Kirill Lunin. And the third student I don't believe is here tonight, but Alexa Koski also achieved a grade score of 36, so I'd like to recognize her tonight as well.
Okay, so now first you gotta pose, and Mr. Baker is also our photographer. He's our flag acquisition specialist. One more. Thanks, man. We gotta get these on social media. Moms and dads, if anybody needs to come up and get a picture, by all means, now's your time. You love this. You love this. Take as long as. Awesome. Congratulations.
All right, our next group of students are artists, and they recently participated in the Chicagoland 4x5 art show. So this art show, for those of you that don't know, has some parameters around it. Everything submitted has to be 4 inches by 5 inches. Can't be any bigger, and it can't be any smaller. So the space is defined for the artists, so they really have to figure out what they want to do with that space, and everyone is starting from the same playing field. It's very interesting. So it's billed as the largest, smallest art show in the nation, and dozens of schools participate, and these 3 students competed earlier this fall. First of all, I'd like to recognize Miles Shepard. I don't believe he's here this evening, but he achieved 3rd place in the mixed media category. And I learned something about the 4x5 art show. I thought it was always a 2-dimensional competition, flat surface, but it's not. It's 3-dimensional. You can submit something that's 4x5x4, and he got 3rd place in that 3-dimensional category. Also, Sage Wilson received honorable mention in film photography. I don't believe she is here either. And finally, Amber Mejia achieved honorable mention in digital photography. So all 3 of those students, I'm sure they are at home diligently working on their art portfolios that are due in a couple of days. But let's give them a round of applause. And now I'll turn things over to Mr. Hahn, the athletic director, to talk about some athletic achievements.
Athletically this fall, we had a lot of success. We're here to recognize 10 individuals who had individual success this past fall. First athlete is a name you should probably be really familiar with because she's had a ton of success all 4 years in high school. That's Sophia Border in girls cross country. Sophia finished in 6th place at last month's state cross country meet held in Peoria. Sophia is a 4-time state qualifier in cross country, and her 6th place finish this year earned her all-state recognition. She improved on her state final time as a junior by almost an entire minute, finishing the 3-mile race this year with a time of 16 minutes and 49 seconds. This is the highest finish for a Geneva runner in 15 years. She is also a standout track and field athlete. Our next group of athletes are part of the West Chicago Co-op swim team. We had 8 state qualifiers as well as 1 alternate at last month's state swim competition in Westmont. The team finished second at the St. Charles North Sectional. Additionally, 2 relay teams were crowned sectional champions, and senior Claire Conklin won the sectional in the 50-yard freestyle. We'll call them up individually at this time. First is Jenna Billett. At the state meet last month, she finished 7th in the 400 freestyle relay. She was a state qualifier in the 200 medley relay, a state qualifier in the 100 butterfly, and a state qualifier in the 500 freestyle. Next is Claire Conklin. Claire finished 6th in the 50 freestyle, 10th at the 100 freestyle, 7th in the 400 freestyle relay, 9th in the 200 freestyle relay, and she will be swimming collegiately at the University of Minnesota next year. Next is McKenna Cothy. McKenna was a state qualifier in the 100 butterfly. Next is Kayla Coel, and she was an alternate on the state qualifying swim team. Emery Larson. Emery finished 7th in the 400 freestyle relay. She was a state qualifier in the 200 freestyle and a state qualifier in the 100 backstroke. Next is Ryan Lehan. Ryan was a state qualifier in the 200 medley relay. Next is Maddie Sikora. Maddie finished 9th in the 200 freestyle relay. Claire Schumacher, 9th. I'm sorry, go ahead, Claire. Claire was 9th in the 200 freestyle relay. She was a state qualifier in the 200 medley relay, a state qualifier in the 50 freestyle, and a state qualifier in the 100 freestyle. And Claire Simon. Claire was a state qualifier in the 200 medley relay, a state qualifier in the 200 individual medley, and a state qualifier in the 100 backstroke. Great news for our swim team. 8 of the 9 that qualified will be back again next year. Well, congratulations to all of our fall teams and athletes, and especially the 10 individuals that were here this evening. Thank you.
probably has finals to study for, so sure, if you want to stay for Mr. Ditzer's talk about the audit, you're welcome. Otherwise, have a great night. Thank you.
Good job.
I've never seen so many fast women in my life.
But then, I'm so proud of the team. I was pulling. I know. I was really
Are you
pulling
out?
house there. I know that.
Okay. Probably could have heard her scream at your house.
Oh man,
She was operating outside.
is that right? Now let's see what Izzo can do with that.
You still got some in here.
Saturday. Lighten it up.
Well, we got some reliable people here.
See, like I said, Nathan, probably better.
But it's all about money.
You know that.
How much did you pay?
Yeah. Can you say Lane Kiffin?
I can just see the headline.
Thank you.
Well, next is item 2. Scott will present the annual comprehensive financial report for 2025.
Todd,
Good
you got
evening.
him all connected there?
Can you?
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Great. Thanks for having me. I'm going to touch on the audit report. I just want to go over all the deliverables that were got finished up here and presenting. Starting with the not the audit report per se, but we do an annual financial report for Illinois State Board of Education, a regulatory report. It's in a format that all districts in Illinois report their data on, so it's comparable.
Could you get a little closer to the microphone there, Scott?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, perfect.
good?
Thank you.
So the form is an Excel workbook. Every district completes the same workbook, so ISB gets the data in a comparable format. We have completed that. I've uploaded that to ISB this afternoon. So your regulatory reporting for the Illinois State Board of Education is completed. As part of that form, they do calculate out a financial profile score. Out of a 4.0 scale, the district got a 3.9 this year. There's various ratios that are looked at: fund balance to revenue, expenditures to revenue, days cash on hand, and some debt calculations. The only one you scored below a 4.0 on was the percentage of long-term debt. That was a 3 instead of a 4, but you ended up with a 3.9, still a recognition category. As debt gets paid down, or your debt margin goes up, or your EAV goes up, that could possibly go to a 4.0 in the next couple years. We do issue a couple of reports. One is a yellow book opinion or an internal control letter. We do audits in accordance with government auditing standards. We're required to do that by ISBE and uniform guidance. So we do have a report related to internal control. We didn't list any specific deficiencies or material weaknesses related to internal controls. Basically, we meet with the staff you have and the segregations that are being used. We think it is appropriate the way the controls are set up. We do not issue an opinion on internal controls. We just gain an understanding to design tests, audit procedure tests. And there's also a required communications letter specifically for the Board of Education, pretty much a boilerplate. Talks about various scope, significant audit matters, and other related topics related to the audit. There is one part that we have not completed yet, and that's the uniform guidance or single audit. That is related to the expenditures. The expenditures are your federal funds. We are required to do, or the district is required to have a single audit performed annually if expenditures are over $750,000. The issue this year is the Federal Office of Management and Budget has just in the last, I think about a week and a half ago, finalized the compliance requirements for 2025. So we have started that process, but we have not, obviously we have not had time to finish that for all of our districts yet. So we plan to get in earnest in that in January and finish those up by the statutory deadline for that, which is 9 months after year end, which is March. So it's a little backwards that the requirements are finalized, almost 6 months after the year is over, but that's the way the federal government works sometimes. To get into the ACFR report, we issued a similar report as in prior years. This report follows all governmental accounting standards, GAAP reporting, generally accepted accounting principles, and this is the gold standard in financial reporting to put this together. It goes above and beyond your regulatory AFR filing. I'm pleased to announce again the district, or for 2024 report, the district did submit the report to the Association of School Business Officials for the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting. And the district did receive the award for June 30th, 2024 with some minor comments that we fix up. I believe you're going to submit again 2025. We believe this 2025 report includes all applicable standards or new standards and should receive the award again in 2025. The one new governmental accounting standards this year was related to compensated absence. Compensated absences did not have really a big effect on school districts just because of the nature of the employees. Page 1 of the audit is in the financial section is our opinion. We issued an unmodified opinion again this year. That means a clean opinion. We believe these financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects. Please note that the opinion covers the basic financial statements, pretty much all the information in the financial section. We do not audit the statistical section. We do not audit the introductory section. If there's one part of the report I always advise people to look at or read, because this is a big report, 130 pages or so or whatever, is the management discussion and analysis. It's a 2-year comparative. The report shows where you were last year, where you ended up this year, and the changes and what happened. So it's about an 8 or 9 page narrative that if you want to spend your time looking at anything, I advise you to read that section. Touch very briefly on the financial statements. Page 14 and 15 are the government-wide financial statements. These are the statements that the district only prepares once a year. These are different than the fund financial statements that you're used to getting information from, that you see monthly, because that's the way you levy in your budget, and the management uses those monthly to keep going. These government-wide financial statements take every economic metric that the district has into account. So there's capital assets in here, there's long-term debt, there's pension liabilities, there's deferred inflows and outflows related to pension and other post-employment benefits. So every metric that you can have goes into these statements, squeezed into one document, and it ends up with a net position, or an equity, so to speak. And the district ended up with about $60 million in positive net position June 30th, 2025. It's up about 6.3 million from last year. So that means your whole overall financially, everything taken into account, financial status improved year over year. And that's a good thing. And there's a lot of districts I do that actually have that number's a negative, just because they have, a lot of debt, a lot of, the liabilities come into play, and that number can go negative, believe it or not. So it's really good to see my districts have a positive net position. there's a lot of information in here that you have no control over, though, too, related to pension funding, OPEB liabilities, teachers' retirement system, those numbers in here that we get from actuaries. It's an all-encompassing thing. And if you look back, actually, in the statistical section, first chart of the statistical section shows the last 10 years of your net position. And starting in 2018, it has been improving every year, moving forward. So that's the great news. So your overall economic health is remaining stable and improving, moving forward. When you take everything into account. The 1 year it did drop down with 2018. This is page 95 and 96 of the report. In 2018, it dropped like $60 million, but that was because of a new government accounting standards. It was the other post-employment benefits, the THIS liability came into play there and knocked everybody down. And as you can see, you were negative. You were actually in a negative net position back then, but you were improving and moving forward. Just want to thank Todd and his team for all the help. He gets us a lot of work to pull all the information to get together. Comes from a lot of different sources that we have to get internally, externally, and it takes a lot of teamwork and a lot of coordination to get it down and get these reports put together and audited by us so we can issue our opinion on it. So I just want to thank Todd and his team for all the help he gave us along the way. Are there any questions or comments related to the report or the filings?
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Appreciate you having me. Have a great rest of your meeting.
Yes, thank you very
Thank you,
much
sir.
for that presentation, and we will act on approving that or voting on it at the pending action section of the agenda. Next, we have some information on instruction in a co-taught situation. Anything you'd like to say, Andy?
Yeah, I've got, this has been an initiative across the district here for the last couple of years. Ann Scalia, our Executive Director of Student Services, is here with several of our members of her team and some of our teachers who are going to talk about some of the innovative and pretty cool ways that our general education teachers and our special education teachers at the secondary level, so middle and high school, are working together to teach students in their classrooms. So I'll pass it off to you, Ann.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for servicing our district. I know it's a busy time of year, so I just want to say we appreciate you and looking forward, obviously, to ending 2025 and our new year. So we just wanted to give an update about implementing specially designed instruction in our co-taught settings. I have several staff sitting here tonight, and I appreciate all of their time. I'm going to have you guys come up. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and they can share where they teach and what they do.
Hi, I'm Lucas Rojas. I teach social studies at the high school.
My name is Andy Schindel. I am a LBS 1, and I co-teach English 1.
I'm Melissa Groot, one of our directors of student services.
Kaya Williamson, and I teach 6th grade math at Geneva Middle School North.
I'm Shannon Delray. I'm the student services coordinator at Geneva High School.
I am Michaela Matson. I am a learning behavior specialist at Geneva Middle School North.
I'm Kirsten Wydra. I'm also a learning behavior specialist at Geneva High School, and I co-teach Algebra 1B.
So just to get started, and we weren't the space is smaller than I thought. So I just wanted to start right now in special education, about 14.8% of our student body qualify for an IEP here in the school district. That percentage is a little lower than the state average, but it is maintained in this district for quite some time. So you can see that data over the course of the last 3 years. So special education is a service. It's not a place. A lot of times we think of, okay, it's special ed, where are you going? Well, it's a service. So what are we doing to serve our students to meet their individual needs? And if we're looking at a continuum of services with the least restrictive environment being general education with no supports, and our most restrictive would be a student who has to be educated in their home, or a special education placement, which would be 100% of their day. The majority of our students, 63%, are serviced in the general ed setting, 80% or more of their day. So this is a service within the setting, and how do we service those students in our gen ed setting? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So this is nothing new. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act has been around since 1975. Very little has changed in the language, the regs. And what it has always said is that we must first start with the least restrictive environment, and we must make sure that we provide an education that closes the gap and allows that student to make progress in that least restrictive environment.
Okay, so when I started with the district 13 years ago at the high school, we did have co-taught classes that we were providing supports and services to our students, but we had them on a far limited capacity. And so I think maybe we had 8 different courses that we had available to students. And so now, over the years, as you can see, we have tremendously expanded the number of courses that we have co-taught available to our students. And so, like I said, I think we had roughly 8 different courses available within the co-taught setting, and now we have several courses. And so when we're looking at courses that we want to expand to the co-taught setting, we're really looking at those graduation requirements that we want to provide additional co-teaching instruction to our students within the general education setting. So it's been a really exciting journey to see our co-teaching opportunities expanded to our students within the general education setting at Geneva High School. So
Shannon, could you, for the board's sake, could you share, like, so when there were 8 co-taught classes,
yes,
what did that look like then for students?
Sure.
Who were needing support in those classes? What did it look like before, to help give the board some context on how what we're going to learn about now looks different for them? Like, what would it have looked like then?
Sure. So, well, to start with, so maybe when I first started, we offered English 1, 2, and 3, and Earth Science, World History, US, and algebras. Okay, so students were still able to access some of that specially designed instruction within those settings, and then they were also receiving supports throughout their day. But as we've expanded on co-taught classes, we've been able to provide additional sections based on what those graduation requirements are. Whereas before, you know, we would figure out ways to implement SEI throughout their school day that wasn't necessarily within the co-taught setting, right, if that makes sense. So they were still getting that specially designed instruction, but not maybe necessarily in the a co-taught class. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, yeah.
Okay.
In co-taught, just to be sure too, we have 1 special education teacher and 1 general education teacher. So that's the definition. And what Shannon was talking about prior to that, we would be pulling students out of the gen ed setting to provide them with services. So we have found ways to implement their special education in the the highest level of least restriction that we possibly can. Okay, and I'm going to let Melissa talk about middle school.
So similar to the district demographics, we at the middle school level provide a majority of our students special education services within the general education setting. Students with disabilities generally are impacted with their reading and writing and math skills. So those are the areas that we support at the middle school level. You will notice that we have about 15 sections of co-taught mathematics, and this is across both of our middle school buildings, and 36 sections of English language arts. And just a reminder that we do have a double block ELA at the middle school, so that kind of accounts for some of the disparities with the numbers there.
So I guess just to give us a big picture about co-teaching, like what that was mentioned, that co-teaching is really placing a general education teacher and a special education teacher in the same classroom. So you have one teacher who's really an expert in the content area, and then one teacher who's really an expert in how do you support students and how you provide with special instruction for these students. So to do that, there's really 4 things that I think we're going to go through more throughout this presentation, but these 2 teachers are working together to try and provide the best outcomes for students. They do that by coming up with different approaches to teaching. So we'll talk about some approaches later in this presentation, but there's stations, there's different parallel teaching, there's all these different kind of instructional models that we've received training on. These teachers talk about and really think about their professional roles. So I think in a lot of the ways, it was viewed before we went on this journey that the co-teacher, the special education teacher, was really just like an assistant in the room, where that's really not what we're trying to have now. We're really trying to make sure that both teachers are equal, so to speak, but both teachers are responsible for providing instruction for all the students in the room. We think about classroom logistics, so both teachers are responsible for planning, both teachers are responsible for setting up the room, for planning activities, and we think about quality instruction. And again, this is where we're combining the skills of a content expert and a special education expert to increase education for all students and outcomes for all students. And all that is wrapped around this kind of supportive context where we've been lucky as teachers that our administration, they provide a lot of training, professional development. They've done like a lot of even like small logistical things within our school day that really matter, like for example making sure that each co-teaching pair have the same plan period so they can actually plan these activities and lessons out. So it's been a great journey, I would say, but let's dive in a little bit more to what it actually is.
Thank you. So roles and contributions, this is one area where, as Lucas just kind of touched on about how the goal is for both teachers to bring value into the classroom and supporting students. And so when you look at that, you want to talk about how we can be efficient, how we can be productive, and how we can be effective. And so when you do that, the best way to outline that is by being able to have roles that you fulfill in the classroom. And so some of this training that we've had with Dr. Tammy Barron has been just really invaluable in helping us iron out what that really looks like and being able to communicate with each other about how we can be most effective in our classroom. And so, our general education teacher brings curriculum expertise. Our special education teacher brings SDI and related expertise, which we'll get into SDI a little bit more as we go here. Gen Ed teacher brings group management. Special education teacher brings focus on individual students. General education teacher brings pacing. Special education teacher brings mastery and mindset. So these are just some of the few roles that we talk about. But I think the most important part of these roles is that you get to know your co-teaching partner and you get to understand each other's strengths in the classroom. And so when you're able to build that relationship with your co-teacher, it allows you then to really build relationships with your students, and having this part of your co-teaching partnership, I think may be one of the most important aspects, because if your students see that you have a good relationship with your co-teacher and you guys are able to really hone in on your roles, it really just brings out the best outcomes for students.
So
So looking at co-teaching, there are a lot of benefits to it. So having two teachers in the classroom allows for access to the general education curriculum and providing those embedded features for students with IEPs. So differentiated instruction is taking a look at how the content is being delivered and how the students receive that and how that they can continue to learn and master that curriculum. And having those two teachers increases that engagement. So allowing for the lower teacher to student ratio is huge to understanding and making data-driven decisions within our content and how we're delivering instruction.
And I think as the general content teacher, it's a great way to get all kids to be active learners. So we always are focused so much on making sure that those students with IEPs, like they're meeting their goals and they're getting their accommodations, but like every kid in the room is getting an advantage towards this. You can see those kids that like are probably like on the bubble of like they probably could use a little more, but they happen to end up in our class and like they thrive. And I think that has been such a fun thing to see just as a content teacher. And I think working with someone like Michaela, it's given me the chance like as a math teacher to, I mean, I know how to teach an abstract concept, but how do we make that like concrete or visual using things they can manipulate and hold? It's been fun to work with Michaela, and I also teach with another co-teacher. So it benefits everyone. I think even us as teachers, and I think at the middle school we all agree that for those of us that have kind of jumped off the ledge of trying this, like it was worth it. It was scary at first, but we say we're better teachers for it in the end.
Okay, so I know a couple people already touched on specially designed instruction, but SDI is kind of taking that content that we have the expert in, right? The gen ed teacher is the expert in all the content area and kind of differentiating it in a way where it reaches all types of learners. So we're tailored to assess the student progress in an individualized way. So looking at the IEP, right, it's an individualized education plan. Every kid has different goals, and we track goals in different ways for each kid. Changes in the content and delivery of instruction. So this is kind of looking into those co-teaching models, which we'll get into, I believe, in a couple slides. But how can we take the content that we need to teach for the class that day and make it so it reaches every student in the room, not just the ones that maybe do well with lecturing? How can we reach the visual learners, the people that need to see it in 12 different capacities before it really gets into their brain? This is carefully planned and monitored. Something really cool that we have at the high school this year is all the co-teachers have a common plan period with each other. So like my co-teacher and I are actually really lucky both of our plan periods are tied together with each other. So we're able to sit down at the beginning of the day and say, okay, this is the content that we're teaching today. How can we use SDI in this lesson and say, okay, what are we doing different here for all the kids? How can we reach X, Y, and Z kid in the classroom while not taking them out of the gen ed environment? We also want everyone to be able to access the curriculum. So some kids maybe are placed in this co-taught classroom for, I don't know, let's say a behavioral need, versus other kids are placed because they have a goal related to math. How are we reaching every single one of those kids in a classroom versus just tailoring it towards the kids who have the math goal or the kids that can't sit still for the 20 minutes of the lesson? And this requires collaboration. Like I said, sitting down with my co-teacher and being able to plan, okay, this week we're doing this co-teaching model this day, and then they're testing this day, and then we're gonna take the results from the test this day and use this the next day. It all kind of flows together, and it can be really cool in the end for the kids. Keeps class engaging for them each day.
So some of the SDI, some examples of it, so what to look for. So in the areas of writing, there's a lot of things that have to be introduced as well as taught before students can access that individually. One of those being our graphic organizers. So believe it or not, they cannot just be given a graphic organizer and they have to complete it. It is a skill that they have to be taught, and that's a factor of SDI. And so looking at those mnemonic devices and strategies for editing and writing, or creating those solid paragraphs, like with using race or things of that nature, as well as concept mapping to get their ideas flowing, focusing on topics, things of that nature.
As far as math, I feel like math kind of follows with writing in English a little bit. I personally love a graphic organizer. If you ever walk into, my co-teacher is Ashley Lynch. If you ever walk into Ashley and I's classroom, we any given day have at least 3 visuals sitting in front of these kids. I like to laminate them too and make them nice. But being able to visually see things, I think, is the number one thing with our kids a lot of the time. And that reaches the SDI of, okay, kids can look at this and they can follow a flow chart or a graphic organizer if they so please. If they don't like it, then they don't have to use it. It's all for what they want to use. Same with that strategy development. Ashley and I always say, we have a Lynch way and a Wydra way. So that's us saying, like, there's 2 ways to solve a math problem. We're giving the kids 2 different options to learn how to solve it, but not saying, hey, this one's probably easier than the other way. We're saying, hey, there's the Lynch way and there's the Wydra way, and you can choose which way you want to solve it, and either way is right on the test because you get to the right answer. So kind of minimizing that discomfort for the kids of being like, oh, shoot, I'm not using the way that maybe it seems smarter. No, it's 2 ways. We're just evening out the playing field for them, and they can do whichever one they want.
Same goes for reading in the sense of using those strategies to help access and comprehend what is being read. And so some of these aspects of SDI are not just embedded within those language arts classrooms, but within those science and social studies in order to access that curriculum. So SDI can be embedded and presented in multiple different areas. So taking a look at the co-teaching models, there are 3 high-yield approaches, them being that parallel teaching, that alternative teaching, and then that station teaching. I'll kind of dive in about station teaching. This is Kai and I's favorite method to present curriculum. And so we do this in a variety of ways. We have differentiated. So what that means is that they are leveled stations. Some of them might see me at a station twice. Some might see Mrs. Williamson once. But we're really able to make data-driven decisions based on where students are. And not only are we providing re-instruction and things of that nature, but we're able to also excel in advanced kids who maybe have grasped the content, and we can even enhance those skills even more.
Sure. Parallel teaching, that's one I've really tried this year, and it's gotten better. It's hard. It's when both of us are teaching at the same time in the same room. Kids are usually faced opposite ways, but we're teaching kind of like she talked about, like one math concept 2 ways. So like she might do a visual, I'll do more of the abstract version, we'll switch. And it definitely helps depending on the group of kids. If you have a group of kids, they have a lot of energy. The smaller group, it keeps them engaged. They're looking, they don't look back, they don't see what the other person's doing, which is amazing. It took a long time to get there. But I think something we can talk about too, just going like back in time, kind of like Dr. Barrett asked, like what did this used to look like? I feel like even when I first started in the district, and this is my 9th year, co-teaching was very much a one teach, one drift, or a one teach, one observe method. And that's all we had known. So like now that we've had all this time with Tammy Barron and learning about these high yield approaches, I mean, we see it now, like it's worth the work to put in. The kids are like so much better off for it. But yeah.
Just talking about the alternative teaching, finding that to be such a useful strategy when you have students that maybe are ill for a week or 2, or maybe we just have something going on, a family emergency, something that's going on where they miss a little bit of time, and so when they come back, you're able to take 1, 2, 3 kids and take them and sit them down and say, hey, I'm going over this lesson or this unit that you've kind of missed, but it allows the rest of the class to continue on with what it is they're working on. And sometimes it can even be vice versa. It could be the content teacher working on that with the small group, and then the LBS is leading the class. So again, it just allows that collaboration to allow all of your students to access the curriculum based on whatever their needs are. And it works for both regular ed and special education students.
I also think what Andy said kind of ties back to what we talked about earlier in the presentation about the relationship and how important it is to have a relationship with the co-teachers. I think we've all realized it's a really beautiful thing. Co-teaching, the relationship you build with another teacher in a classroom is like crazy, but like Andy was saying, you have to trust the other person that you're in the classroom with in order to do these things. If my co-teacher didn't trust me to teach a small group of kids the exact same content that she taught, we're not getting anywhere. Same with like Ashley and I personally, we do a lot of team teaching where we're both standing up at the board. It wouldn't be good if one of us was spewing off the wrong information standing there. So it all kind of nicely comes together in a bow, how important all these different aspects are.
So thank you, you guys. This group talked a lot about Dr. Tammy Barron. Dr. Tammy Barron is a researcher and professor from Western Carolina University. If you look her name up, she's written several books, and she has worked for years directly with Dr. Marilyn Friend, who is the guru of co-teaching and has been since the 80s. I had the opportunity of getting to know Dr. Barron, and she has come into our district and provided PD, which builds that common knowledge base, but then also, like they said, the coaching. So we provide coaching to all of our co-teaching pairs, so that helps with the application. So you can sit and learn about these things, the different models, the different ways to implement SDI, but until you go in your classroom and practice it and have someone coach you, it does not become, that's what you need for it to be natural. And these guys have brought it to that natural level. If you walked into any of their classrooms, it's amazing. And I just want to say kudos to you, as well as all of our co-teaching pairs across the district. So it's been years of this. We started this work actually back in 2018, and then there were some hiccups, 2020. And then we started back up again in 2021. And we are finally in a sustainable place. What these guys aren't telling you, and what I need to tell you, is they have been identified as our exemplar pairs. They are going to help us move forward with sustaining this across the district for years to come, because we can't always have Tammy Barron coming from North Carolina to be our coach. Now, she will help us and assist us and give us our research, but we're going to do this together as we onboard new teachers, as we help each other grow, as well as our colleagues. And I just want to say that all of you should be so proud of your work. And I can tell by the students when I walk in, they absolutely love it. They love your classrooms, they're fully engaged, and we're seeing great student outcomes in the least restrictive setting. So I think, I mean, I'm gonna let them talk, but I think the coaching MPD has contributed to our success of our staff. We don't have high staff turnover. They feel connected to each other. We've had vertical articulation between the middle school and the high school. And I think just having that support is huge, as well as seeing success with their students, right? Nothing makes you want to come back to work more than knowing that you made a difference. But I'll let you guys talk about, is there any other things that you feel like this has supported you as staff?
I think in the middle school, we've had a chance to just invite each other into our classrooms. And it's such a simple thing just to reach out to another math teacher and be like, hey, Michaela and I, we're co-teaching 8th hour. We're doing stations today. Come take a look. And I mean, the one person that came in and watched, she was like, it makes sense now. She goes, I can see it. Like, I get it. Like, it was just such a little thing to do. And then we've all been in other classrooms as well. And I think that's the best way we learn is from each other. We can have all of these formal PowerPoint presentations, but until you actually start doing it and learning from each other, like, that's really when the magic happens. So that's kind of been cool to see.
So I was going to say, too, I'm on my 5th year of teaching, and I've had Kaya as my co-teacher for all 5 years. And taking a look at where we were in my first year of teaching to where we are now, I mean, we are continuing to grow. And so with the PD offered, and as well as the coaching, we are always looking for new ideas and new ways to meet individualized students' needs in order to access that curriculum, which is crazy to see how much that co-teaching model supports and benefits all students within the classroom setting.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback off of that, I think that there has been in the past a time when you talk about co-teaching and how there is kind of a little bit of a stigma around special education. And when you are able to put these strategies into place, I don't think that you would be able to walk into a classroom and say, I know student A has an IEP versus student B. And I think that that creates a classroom environment that is respectful, it's inclusive, and it allows all of our students to thrive with multiple adults in a room. So I think it's just really been able to build a good learning environment for everyone.
We've gone over a lot of the ways this impacts our students, but I will tell you, and maybe they can tell a personal story or two. I was in a classroom one day and I said to the student, I'm like, because they were broke up in station teaching. And I said, oh, I'm like, do you do this often? Oh yeah, we do this often. And one kid, I said, well, what do you like about it? And the student said, well, I get a lot more attention from the teacher. It was yours. And it's because they're in these little groups. And so as they rotate, all of them are getting individual or small group attention from one of the two teachers. And so there's a lot more time for them to be able to engage, one with each other in a small group, but also with their teacher. But if you guys, I mean, other like authentic, some of the comments are great, but.
We can attest that we teach 8th hour this year, which is the last period of the day after PE. And multiple people have been in our room while we're doing a co-teaching model, and they're impressed. And I'm impressed too. The kids don't look at the clock. Like usually every other year I've ever taught 8th hour, it's 3:15 and they're staring. I'm like, you have 10 more minutes, everybody. Like we got to keep going. But it is like the level of engagement. They don't even realize that they're doing more work than they probably would be doing on their own, which is also fun. But I can attest, helps our 8th hour math class a lot. Thank goodness.
I shared a story at our PD that we did back in like September, October, for our new co-teachers. I think it's a really cool one. Ashley and I co-taught Algebra 1B together last year. We had a student, he doesn't have an IEP, didn't receive special education services, just was in the 1B classroom with us. And he moved on and he's in Ashley's Gen Ed geometry this year. And he walked in on the first day of school, and obviously he had Ashley and I last year. And he went up to her at the end of the period and he was like, I'm excited to be in your class. And she was like, I'm excited to have you again too. And he's like, but where's Miss Wydra? And he was so baffled by the idea that like Ashley and I don't teach every single period, every single day together. Like he thought we were just this duo that went through the day together. And I think that shows how important it is too, like that, again, that relationship and that rapport that you build as a group. We don't do the like, my students versus your students thing. Like every student is equal in our classroom, and it's been a really beautiful thing.
Well, again, thank you for supporting this team, our coaching, our PD, and if you have any questions, we're happy to answer those.
Any questions, anyone?
I'd just make one comment, that's all. I was really impressed with the fact that you said that students have the opportunity to use manipulatives. In this age where we have software and swiping left and right, it's good to know that they really get a chance to get those concrete concepts. I was really, really glad to hear that. Keep it.
Thank you.
Questions? This is the first I've heard of co-teaching, so it was very interesting to me. How many pairs of co-teachers do you have in your programs?
So if we went back to that slide, those are the amount of settings that we have co-taught, right? So I think it was at the high school, 48, but out of co-teaching pairs per subject area. So okay. Maybe
so
15 at the high school.
Okay.
19 maybe pairs.
Okay. Okay.
So when we're looking at creating, because the partnership is so important and trying to create that consistency from year to year, so like Kirsten and Ashley have been together for 2 years. And so trying to create, common plan time, things like that is so important. We also want to make sure that we're trying to look at content areas, so not having someone be teaching in science and social studies and math, so trying to put them in one content area if possible. So for the special ed teacher, right? So obviously your content teacher is in the content area, but we're trying to keep the special ed teachers into one content area if possible. Sometimes they go into a couple, but trying to keep them in one content area, and then trying to limit the number of co-teachers that they're working with so they can really work on building that rapport with their content teacher partner.
You've mentioned that you have middle school and high school. Is this also done in the elementary schools?
I think it is done. I don't think it's been as developed. So we have not had the PD and the coaching at the elementary. Now, elementary has a lot more discrete skills that they're still using and learning, where content at the secondary level is much different. I'm not teaching the vowel, the 7 syllable types or the 6 syllable types, where it has to be more direct instruction with small groups necessarily. When you think about Algebra 1, and all the skills that go into Algebra 1, we have so much we have to cover that we can't hit discrete skills.
Okay.
Does that kind of help?
Makes sense. Then the last question I have is, in the co-teaching pairs, does the special education teacher focus solely on the students with the IDPs, or is it they can be working with anybody during this process? Either co-teacher could be working with the children with the IDPs or without, or vice versa in this case.
So yes and no.
Okay.
We try, I think I can speak on behalf of all three of us too. Like, we try to keep the classroom as a whole. Like, we don't do the my students versus your students thing. So like, that's been a model that's been discussed in the past, is like, okay, the special education teacher's only responsible for the IEP students in the class, and then the gen ed teacher's only responsible for the kids without special education services in the past. Well, what I find in my classroom is sometimes some of the kids without special education services actually need more help with the math content than some of the kids with IEPs. It's just depending on what you get. So we kind of mix it up. So yes and no. Like, yes, I'm responsible for goal updates and progress monitoring and all of that for an IEP student. However, I wouldn't say that I only solely focus on them in a room.
So within these
I was gonna. I'm about to go right into what you're about to say. So absolutely, I got you. I'm right with you. So a really good example of that is today in my English 1 class with Renner Burns, we're reviewing for finals, right? And so we just took a summative test last week, and we got our scores back, and we saw one group of students did poorly in this area, another group of students did really good in this area, and then there's our third group that's just kind of over here. And so we take those students and we group them based on, in this example, where their area of need is in front of this particular assessment. And so this is both regular ed and IEP students put together. And so we did our station teaching. And so our higher level kids they were independent in the independent group twice. We had our lower level kids that were working with us more frequently, and then we had our other group that was also working with us more frequently. And so we're able to take this unified approach and be able to basically touch our kids throughout the entire class and give them those skills that they need. But it is very dependent, I would say, on what day of the week it is, because as special education teachers, we also have roles and responsibilities that Kirsten was talking about that might be data collection for goals and things of that nature that go into it. So maybe our roles and responsibilities differ a little bit today because we need to do something revolving around that. So I think it really is an ever flexible and evolving kind of routine and pattern that we face all the time in class. So hopefully, did that answer your question? Okay, great. Yep.
I only have one question. In the schedule, or when our students get the schedule, or when the parents get the schedule, do they have both teachers on? So it's just the gen ed teacher would be on the schedule, and then when the student shows up day one, then they see the second teacher or the co-teacher there, I should say.
Yes, unfortunately, as of right now, eSchool only allows the system to list the content teacher, so it does not show the special ed teacher in the course.
Okay.
So.
Special education parents would know because it's listed in their IEP.
Microphone. Sorry.
The special education, the parents of students with who receive special education would know because it would be listed in their IEP that they're in co-taught English 1 or co-taught, Algebra 1A. So that's shown there. Yeah.
Just as a teacher who I do co-teach, so I co-teach government, but I also just have a regular government class as well. Their curriculum and the goals for students is exactly the same. So in my classes without a co-teacher, like it's the same content, same curriculum, same learning objectives for students. In my co-taught section, same thing, we just might have some different lessons or different approaches to teaching it. It's actually, I think, for those gen ed students that are in the co-taught class, it's actually, I think, a little bonus for them because they actually get a little more attention than they would in my just regular class where I have 30 students. Now in my co-taught class, it's 30 students, but there's 2 teachers. So the ratio is a little smaller, teacher to student ratio. So it's actually, yeah, a little bonus for kids, a secret bonus, we would say.
Anyone else?
And I just one more comment, so our high school junior has a class with co-taught teacher, and didn't know this until parent-teacher conferences that this was happening. But now that I kind of have this insight, and thank you for the presentation tonight, I'll be curious to ask her in terms of how she feels about that class, because I didn't realize it was taught like this. So this is really enlightening. Thank you very much for the presentation.
For your time. Thanks
Great
for
job,
everything.
everybody. Thank you so much for what you do.
guys.
Yes, thank you, and we appreciate that you've been able to get the PD to do this important work. Some of these indications are almost intuitively, obviously superior when you have a large group and there's a varying level of comprehension. So thank you very much. Okay, the next item on our agenda, the 2025 tax levy year final presentation. Todd Latham is here to do the job.
I bet they turned it off on you. They thought they were being helpful. Oh, was it?
I gotta talk real loud.
That won't work for the TV.
The last group wore out the battery.
I'm not surprised.
And then you'll see me come back next year with a budget. Next year. All right, good evening. So this is the ongoing process of discussing our 2025 tax year levy received in 26. As I've said several times, we receive this at the end of the current fiscal year in May, June, and then in the 26-27 year, July through usually October or November. And so this is up before the board for final adoption and approval. And I had an opportunity tonight to talk with the Finance Committee and make a presentation to them, and they made a recommendation to the board. So a little bit about this again. These are the key components of the tax levy process. We talk about the equal assessed valuation. That's the value of all the properties that are in the district. New property and construction, which are basically new EAV that comes onto the tax rolls that are not applicable to the item below that, which is the property tax extension limitation law. It's all applicable to CPI, and we'll show those rates and how they progressed historically. We'll talk about the tax rates, especially the maximum rates that we've had over the years. Our total extension that we'll be asking for this time for approval. Any revenue recapture and truth in taxation. We'll have a hearing tonight, which anyone here could give testimony about the levy for or against it. So what is the EAV? So it essentially is the property valuation after the county and the state provide equalization calculations. It's important because it gives us an idea of the financial growth of the district, and the EAV is multiplied by the approved tax rate per $100 of EAV to arrive at the extension. This is just the history of the rate setting EAV for Geneva 304, and you can see that the 2025 estimated is $2,138,892,182, or what represents a 9.61% increase over the prior year. So you can see these last couple of years we've had really good growth, which is basically the growth in value of properties in the district. This is our new property. You can see we've had growth in 3 of the 4 areas. We've seen an increase of new construction or new property in our commercial area, our industrial and our residential, and the estimated total is just a little over $12 million of new growth. That's compared to last year where it was $15 million. So we had a little bit of slowing of growth in the district. So the property tax extension limitation law came in 1991. Essentially, it's passed by county, and Kane County is one of those counties that follows this particular law. So essentially, it limits the increase over the prior year. So it sets it at the tax cap of 5% or CPI. And so you'll see tonight we're asking for a higher amount than CPI for the new construction, which is allowed by law. And then essentially the rest of it will follow the CPI when it's applied by the county, and we get our final levy. So what is the limitation? So essentially, as I mentioned, it says it's the 5% or CPI. And the next slide, we'll take a look at what that CPI has been over time. So this is from 2014 through 2024. And so we use the prior year in December to set the CPI that we're using for this year. So you can see where it was 2.9. It's gone down from prior years, and so that's the limit that we have when we levy. So these are the funds that are subject to PTEL. These are our CAP funds. They're education, special education, operations and maintenance, transportation, Social Security, IMRF, fire and prevention safety. What's not applicable to the CAP funds and the limit is the bond and interest and the working cash, and lastly our revenue recapture. So this is the actual calculation we do for the limiting rate. Essentially says that the prior year extension times 1% plus the lesser of CPI or 5% divided by the total EAV minus property is how we get to the limiting rate. Just a couple notes on the bottom that the rate is based on the prior year extension. New property is outside the tax cap, as is debt service. So this is how the district has done with its limiting rate. You can see by year what the total rate was and what the capped rate was and non-capped. And as you can see over time, that's kind of came down. So it's what I've talked about before. When the EAV, the district goes up, you see that total rate start to come down over time, and this is indicative of what's occurred for the district. All right, so this is the historical levy requests. So you can see by every year of the tax levy what the district requested and what it actually received. And you can see that we've been very good about the ask and the receive. We've been very comparable over time. And so it kind of reemphasizes that we're very good with our levy process, and we have a good understanding of what takes place in that process. And again, these are the assumptions that we made. CPI is at 2.9%. That's set at the end of December of 2024. The max that we could ask is 5%. And the EAV is just a little over $2 billion, as I mentioned. The expected increase in EAV for us is 9.61 over the prior year. Our new construction comes in a little over $12 million. Our ask or our cap levy that you'll be looking at tonight and approving is 4.87%. Our bond and interest has very little increase. We've been very stable with that. Our estimated tax receipts from the levy are $109,012,230, which represents an increase of $4,378,920 over the prior year. So that's the new dollars that we would expect to receive. So this was the draft that I gave you. This is the calculation process that I brought before the board. This was the tentative that I brought before the board, and you can see there were some changes. We made some changes within those of where funds needed more of a request and less. And then some of the changes between that were putting more dollars towards special education programs. We just had a presentation on that. You can see why that's important to the district. I reduced some of the requested levy dollars for our Fund 50. Those are retirement, just because we've had accumulated some funds in those, and I didn't need as much this year. We need to spend down some of that fund balance. It allows for life, health, safety improvements. We just completed that, so we have to do those, our A's and B's, and then also it considers our new property. And lastly, we've had little to no change between the tentative finals, so we've basically been very stable from that presentation until tonight. We did follow the truth in taxation hearing requirement. We did the required published notice. The levy has been on our website for the required period of time. We'll tonight have a hearing which will allow the public to give testimony. The board will have an opportunity to give input. You've heard the conversation from the AFR about some of our cash reserves. This is the estimation that I've had that I gave to the board. This is unaudited, so tonight you had the audited, so we can update this where we believe we ended the prior fiscal year. And lastly, we'll follow the process to complete the levy tonight. So we published the notice. It was in the King County Chronicle. Tonight we'll have the levy hearing. We'll be able to approve it through the Truth in Taxation Compliance Resolution, our Certificate of Tax Levy, which is the compilation of the levy by fund. I'll ask that you approve a tax levy resolution by the board. That basically just has the entire document that's required by law to place on file with the county. If approved, I go there tomorrow. I file all of our documents, and that completes our levy process. The last piece is about in March. I actually get the estimation of all the final numbers, and then it's what's called the confirmation of levy, which I sign off as treasurer on behalf of the district, so we can receive those funds through the taxation process. All right, that concludes the presentation. Any questions from the board?
Any questions? Thank you very much, Todd. We now go into item 5, which is the hearing, public hearing agenda. So I call the hearing sort of a mini meeting within the meeting to order, and we have listened to your explanation of the 2025 levy proposed increase. Do you have anything to add or
I do not.
per se? Okay. Anybody have any questions at this point?
I would just say that I had one citizen contact me over the weekend just inquiring about the process, and they were informed they had a chance to come speak before the board. I don't know if they're here tonight, but I did let them know there'd be multiple opportunities, and that I had just passed it. They had inquired about it onto the board.
And so the next item is levy testimony. I think that's what you have basically done. Any questions or any comments from the board members? And is there any public comment at this time? Hearing none, I close the hearing. The next item is public comments, and I would like to say that we received a written comment which has been distributed to the board members. I see here that Emily Erickson would like to talk about the school calendar. You're Emily Erickson? Are you going to ask us if we would start later rather than earlier? Of course. All right. I can make your job a little easier because
I know that. I know. I saw it on there that you're proposing it to stay the same.
Yes.
We want you at the mic so you can be
Oh
on
yeah, no,
YouTube and everything.
Yeah, I saw that the
Yeah.
proposal, and I'm very grateful for that. I just figured I kind of the reason I'm talking is because I assume that in the future it'll probably, still be on the table. First, thank you, Dr. Barrett, for taking so much time to talk to me, explaining so much. There was a lot to learn. So I am grateful for your time. As you know, I don't support moving up the start date, but I understand the importance of balancing out these semesters. And that is, I now have a student in high school who's hopefully at home studying right now for his finals. But so I guess my question is just really if there has been any discussion about alternative schedule changes to balance out the semesters without moving up the start date. That would just kind of be my question to the board. Like, what are the different possibilities, potential schedule changes?
Ms. Erickson, we normally don't go back and forth on this,
Oh,
but
for sure.
I will break that precedent just a little bit. Of course, when I went to school, which was a very long time ago, you had Christmas break and then you came back and had a week and took your finals. Would you prefer a setting like that if it balanced the time?
I wouldn't be opposed to it because that's the way I did it as well. We started a lot later. I realize that that's a sacrifice, and I think that a lot of kids that study that number of weeks before are going to do it regardless. So I think, Christmas break might be a time that kids can utilize to study. Some may not. I know my son is cramming right now as much as I complained to him months ago about preparing. But I feel like, as I was going through, talking to other parents, that if it didn't have to be that week directly following Christmas break, if there's a week or two, if that would balance out. If there's other days within the semester, I would be in favor of moving to after Labor Day, but I know that would never happen. Or even pushing it another week back, that would mean that you could push finals back and have that little bit of an extra time. But I realize with all the co-ops and everything like that, that's probably not realistic. So I'm just curious as to, is there any other discussions as to how to balance out the semesters without moving up a start date?
Andy?
Yeah, I think when we get to this on the agenda a little bit, we might have an opportunity to talk about some of that a little bit, and some of the conversations that we've had a lot of those. But yeah,
right,
fair question, and those I can say candidly, those conversations will continue regardless.
And I guess how many years have you told me that they changed it? They used to take it after Christmas break. How many years ago was that it was changed? Roughly? More than 10,
More than 10.
More
I'd say
than 10.
upwards of 15 years.
Is there any way to gauge whether or not kids tested better before or after, or has it been done, or is there a way to tell whether or not it makes that big a difference to their test scores? It might.
I wouldn't be able to answer that question, but I would point out that test scores have generally not been increasing.
So it didn't.
I don't know if it has any connection.
Yeah, right. It didn't matter then.
I can't say.
Okay. I wasn't asking you. I know you're a board member. These guys that are making the changes. I wouldn't expect you to know what the test scores are before or after they changed, the schedule. So
it happened before I was on the board. How's that?
I was looking to these guys right here on whether or not they had any idea if
we'd
it made that big of a change in test scores.
It was a long time ago, and it was kind of a different world.
For sure, I get it.
But I'd be happy to talk about it with you after the fact too.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Good. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. That'll teach me to violate precedent. Okay, Bonnie, did you receive any other requests for comments? Does anyone want to say anything at this point? You're here. Thank you very much. Legislative updates, please.
Okay, since we last met, we had the IASB Delegate Assembly. We spent quite a bit of time talking about the one resolution and the changes to the Constitution for us. So I wanted to give you a report on what happened. So the resolution, there was only the one, if you recall, it had to do with the seatbelts on the school bus and looking at a few alternatives to what was being proposed. That actually stayed on consent agenda and passed, so there was no discussion. I was surprised that pushed through so easily. For the constitutional amendments, there were a few that were pulled off of consent agenda, and we had discussion on those. Everything ended up being passed, do adopt, as was recommended to all the delegates. When it came time to the election of officers, there was a nomination for from the floor for I believe, the vice president. So we had to go through that procedure. The person who was nominated from the floor, they did have information. She had gone through the proper channels to be nominated from the floor. So they had the information ahead of time. They put up a slide to show her credentials essentially, and the person that was nominated for the position's credentials. And I ended up voting for the person that they originally proposed because they appeared to have more years of service and a little more background in it. So I felt like that person that they had brought forward was the better choice. So I did have to make that call on behalf of the board while I was there, and that's how I made that decision. So that's what happened. Everything essentially passed, and I don't recall how long it was, maybe a couple hours, but it all went well. So thank you.
Hey, Jackie, is that unique to the someone calling a nomination for a position on the board from the floor?
I understand it happened a few years ago when I wasn't at the assembly.
Yeah,
and
I was going to say I saw it.
yeah, and so they tightened up the rules for how you do it. And so there was quite a procedure to nominate yourself from the floor. After you go through the process of interviews with the directors so that they come forward with a slate, if you were not selected, you did have time to go through this procedure to basically come to the meeting and say, I still think I'm the better candidate for it. So that's kind of how it is. Okay. But they made it a lot more difficult to nominate. You can't just decide like at that time, even though it sounds like in being nominated from the floor, it's on the fly. It really isn't. There was a whole procedure.
And so, I'm sorry, so which person did?
The one that they originally nominated.
Okay, not the
on
one
the slate. Yeah, not the one from the floor. Yeah, she didn't have as much experience, but she had a unique experience compared to the other person. But I just went with it, and it was the majority, more than the majority, I believe. 2/3 had to vote for her, and they did. So.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Thank you. Superintendent's report, Dr. Barrett.
Hello, I thought I was.
Well, that was short.
Yeah. The heck? There we go. Well, I will be very. I only have 2 slides tonight because I know we have a long agenda. So, first, I just want to say, we always do I try to do some facts and thank yous, and today I want to do some quick facts and some thank yous for our all the local philanthropic organizations that do a lot to support our schools. We get to hear a lot from the teachers and the educators who do so much to look out for our kids and educate our kids, but the local philanthropic organizations that do so much, it's really unbelievable, and I think every educator in our district would tell you how fortunate we feel to have groups like our PTOs, like our booster organizations, like some community and civic organizations. There are a number of these organizations that are either kind of tied closely to our schools, like our PTOs and our booster programs, or that are kind of tangentially associated through the community, like the Geneva Academic Foundation, or our Pride retired volunteers, or the Lions and the Kiwanis, the Masons who are pictured here making a donation to the school district. There are hundreds of people across this community who do a lot to support our kids in our schools and our teachers, and it's really appreciated. And they really do that in 2 ways. One is they just support really cool stuff that happens, right? Our fun fairs, our activities, a lot of these cool things, outdoor ed, a lot of cool things that happen for kids couldn't happen if these groups weren't there. But also, of course, I think we all know these organizations raise a lot of money and contribute a lot of money, financial supports to our schools and to our kids in ways that really make a meaningful impact. I mean, I know outdoor ed, candidly, could not it's a great experience, and it could not be a thing in our district the way that it is without the supports of like our PTOs and these kinds of organizations. So this kind of thankful time of year, we just wanted to say as a school district, thank you to those organizations for doing all those things they do for our kids. And speaking of that, just want to give a happy holidays to everyone in the community, and to the board and to everyone in our schools. This is always a very exciting time of year and busy time of year, and I think it's also always important for us to remember that for a lot of people this can be a really challenging time of year. And so it's important to have all that excitement and fun, but also just make sure we're continuing to remember that, you know, as our theme of the year goes, we're in it all together, and we want to make sure we're taking care of each other at this time of year. So that's all I have, Larry.
Well done, Andy. Thank you. And on behalf of the board, I'd like to thank all of those generous individuals. Every time I get to the list of people who have donated to the district, I'm impressed and pleased that people care so much. Next item, dialogue topics pending action consideration. First one is the adoption of a resolution authorizing the certificate of the tax levy for 2025. So we are, as you know, required to approve a resolution to adopt that tax levy. Is there any discussion? And if there is none, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the 2025 tax levy.
Second.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all very much. I trust we're happy with that one. Resolution providing for the issue of this is item 2 in the agenda. Resolution providing for the issue of not to exceed $22,900,000 of general obligation refunding school bonds, series 2026A, and that is for the purpose of refunding certain outstanding bonds owned by the district. It's for the levy of the direct tax, annual tax sufficient to pay the principal and interest of said bonds, and authorizing the proposed sale of said bonds to the purchaser thereof. Representative from Raymond James.
Is that you connected? Sorry, I need to connect. So Elizabeth Hennessy is here to talk about this bond refunding proposal. Elizabeth, I'll pull up and drive the presentation if that's all right with you.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. And there we go. Our board had an opportunity to talk about this a little bit in our retreat, our recent retreat, as I'm pulling this up. I always like to kind of talk about these things as it is easy for me and maybe as a citizen to understand it. And really what we're talking about tonight, we've heard Todd talk, and Scott, actually, our auditor, a lot of money talk tonight, huh? Talk about our debt and our bond debt, right? And our bond debt is basically our district mortgage, right? The mortgage we have for our buildings and our facilities. And we're now at a point where we have an opportunity to consider refunding some of that debt, refunding some of those bonds, which is basically, Elizabeth can get into the smart details of it, but it's like refinancing, right? When you get to go and refinance your mortgage. So we have an opportunity to see if we can save the taxpayers a little bit of money as we now approach this window where we can refund some of our bonds. And Elizabeth always helps us do this, and I'm going to pass it off to her to give a quick presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Barrett, and thank you for having me tonight. This presentation is going to look at the opportunity to refund the Series 2016 bonds, which were originally refunded from 2007, part of the referendum bonds. And those bonds are currently callable, which means unlike a mortgage, you can't refinance general obligation municipal bonds anytime. You have to wait till the call date. So we will be there January 1 of 2026 So now the district is able to refund those bonds on a tax exempt basis. So first of all, I'm going to give you a quick market update. Last week we had the Fed lower interest rates, the Fed funds rate once again from 375 down to 350. That is the third cut this year. Importantly, there were 2 dissenters on the decision and 1 who wanted a larger cut of the Fed governors. So what that tells us, and it tells the markets for next year, is we may not be so sure there will continue to be cuts in the Fed funds rate. It's going to be data driven, so we'll see how things like unemployment and inflation, CPI, continue into 2026. Next slide. This is the AAA Municipal Market Data Index, and the dark line is the 30-year average. On the x-axis we have the maturity. On the y-axis we have the interest rate. And the red line is where we are now. So you can see that interest rates in years 3 through about 18 are lower than that 30-year average, and the rest of it is close to that. So rates have come down. And if we go to the next page, we can see how rates have changed since January 1. Again, these are tax-exempt municipal bond rates for AAA rated bonds, and you can see that the bonds maturing in years 1 through 13 have gone down substantially since January 1 of 25, kind of incorporating those rate decreases we just talked about. However, the longer term rates from years 15 through 30 have actually increased, and that's kind of an indicator that inflation is still with us, and the markets are expecting higher prices and reflecting those in higher interest rates on that longer end of the curve. This next snapshot is your debt limit. This is a statutory debt limit. The district's gross debt limit is $271,449,000. You have 75.295 million bonds outstanding, so your net debt limit is 196,154,037. So it's a very large debt limit. If we go to the next slide, these are the 2 bond issues you have outstanding. These are the 2017s and the 2016s. We're talking about refunding tonight. Important to note, the 2017s are callable next January of 2027. Given current market conditions, savings for refunding both of these bonds is close to $1.4 million to the taxpayers. Okay. Let's go to the next page. This shows the outstanding payments for your debt. If we look at the far right column, we see the tax rate for debt is around 74 cents, and the payments are just under 14.5 million, and they're ending in 5 short years by levy year 2029. Okay. Let's go to the next page. This is a graphic of those debt payments, and the green line here is what we call the debt service extension base. That's part of the tax cap. The district hasn't issued any of those non-referendum bonds for many years, but you could if you wanted to. So that green line represents the limit on that issuance. So again, this just shows graphically that the debt will be totally repaid by levy year 2030. So here's the proposed refunding of the 2016 bonds. What we're proposing is to pay the debt off as quickly as possible within that 14.5 million constraint. So we're shortening the debt, and all the savings comes in the last year, and the total savings is estimated currently at $600,831. So for the owner of a $500,000 home, over that period of time, that's worth about $49 less in property taxes on that 2016 issue. Okay, so that's a resolution we're looking at tonight. I wanted to show you this next slide too, because in short order, the 2017s are going to be callable, and those may be refunded as soon as October of 2026. So those also produce savings, again, taking the same strategy, paying them off as quickly as possible while keeping the payments at 14.5 million a year. That saves another 600,000. So together, you can see the savings are 1,260,000, 131 based on interest rates right now. And these are a little conservative. As more of the impact of that rate cut comes in, we're hoping for a little better than that. So the last page is the proposed timeline. So tonight, in November, we discussed the refunding options and paying off the debt early. You saw the parameters resolution in your board packets last week. Tonight, we're discussing the parameters refunding bond resolution, and that is in your board packet. What that does is authorizes the board to move forward with the refunding within certain parameters, certain savings parameters, and the payments not to exceed the 14.5 million a year, without any further board action. However, the final sale is subject to the approval of the board delegates, and the board delegates include the board president as well as assistant superintendent and superintendent of schools. So our plan is to move forward with this sale as soon as we get the bond rating in place, which we're talking about this week, and then going to market the week of January 12th. And at that time, we will have a proposed final interest rate within these parameters and subject to the approval, again, of those board delegates set forth in this resolution, the board president and superintendent / assistant superintendent for business. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions from the board?
I have just two clarifying questions. The first is callable in 2016, or yeah, I'm sorry, 2026. Is there a window of time within, or is it any time after 2026?
It's any time after January 1, 2026. But we wanted to suggest moving quickly because it takes, about 30 days to close, and we have to give the owners of the bonds notice that their bonds are getting called away from them. And so we want to get those refunded so you're paying the lower rate sooner rather than later.
You bet. And so I guess the follow-up question to that is there any cost savings associated to the two bonds that we have outstanding to do it all at once at one time in October 2026? Sorry.
That's a good question. Most of your cost of issuance are based on the amount of bonds sold. So it's proportional to the sale. So there's no savings for most of them. The only one cost that there's some slight savings, and I would estimate it probably under $10,000, is the bond rating fee. Okay.
So instead of doing that twice, you just doing that.
Do it once. But we'd have to look at the savings of that 10,000 or less fee versus not locking in the savings on the 26 bonds for 10 months.
Right.
So that's why we're suggesting going now, because it's my notion that that's a greater number, although I don't have that analysis at my fingertips.
Sure. The 10 months of having the savings on that rate versus and then obviously there'll be a new rate in October 2026 for that
2017. Yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Dan. Anybody else have questions? All right. Who would like to have their name associated with a motion to save the taxpayers $1 million?
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Okay, item 3.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yes, thank you very much. Item 3, the 2026-2027 school calendar. Shanette Sims.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to connect here.
Talk to you tomorrow, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I bet you will.
Thank you. Yeah, so I wanted to share that our speaker was correct. We're rolling over kind of the current calendar for this next school year. In doing so, our staff will begin on Monday, August 17th. Our students will begin on Thursday, August 20th, with those first 3 days being opening day for the district, opening day for the buildings, and then our what used to be our early September Teacher Institute Day. And then the last day for the school year would be May 28th, 2027. In terms of balanced semesters and trimesters, our elementary trimester dates are 58, 58, and 59. Our middle school, because they don't have that semester exam structure, they will have balanced semesters at 87 and 88 days. The high school with this start date will have an imbalance of 78 days in the first semester and 97 days in the second semester. The Fox Valley Career Center will, like many of our Kane County school districts, they're committed to beginning that second full week of August. So they will start a week earlier. So that will necessitate transportation being provided to our students that attend the Fox Valley Career Center. And then also for our students who provide their own transportation, for example, for cosmetology, they will have to assume that responsibility a week earlier. This also impacts our first semester driver's ed behind the wheel hours. And this requires our teachers to be very creative. They're driving with students before school even starts, during that first few days of the school year, as well as during parent-teacher conference times, because all students enrolled in driver's ed have to have 6 hours of behind the wheel time. So they've been very creative with schedules to ensure students get those hours. This also continues to have an impact on our Geneva High School semester-long courses, not only on the regular semester-long courses, but also like AP Government, which is a semester-long course. So our teachers will continue to, accommodate that shift with an extra unit of study or a faster pace in those shortened semester courses. We will probably bring the calendar back to you in the fall or even later this upcoming school year, the remainder of the school year. Once we have the IHSA schedule, as Dr. Parrott has shared, we are going to move a half day of attendance to accommodate the homecoming parade due to the large number of students that are removed for that afternoon to attend that. So we just don't have that schedule yet. So when we have that, we'll bring it forward. So this is the calendar that we're recommending for the 26-27 school year.
And I might add, Shawnette, just kind of based on some of the conversation we were having earlier, we do recognize, at this point, if we're feeling like this is where we're at and this later start is where we're going to be, as Shawnette made a great point of, here's a bunch of the things we're going to have to try to accommodate, and we also know we're going to have to be having some conversations at the high school level specifically about what other creative things can we do to address that balance in semesters, and have some additional conversations about that. I know Mr. Rogers and the BLT team, we've already had some preliminary conversation about that, and I know that they're going to dig into that more to look at some of those options down the road, depending on, like you said, where finals might be placed, or if there's other creative solutions. So we know we're going to have to engage in those conversations going forward.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I just wanted to comment. Thank you all for your work on this. First of all, I know we all have had several conversations about this, both like a lot with Dr. Barrett and other administrators and with lots of parents. So thank you for everyone's engagement. But I think that these problems don't go away. We're obviously aware of these, so we're going to have to find solutions, if that means going sooner, if that means some other creative solution. But I think it's just important that we're continuing to talk about it throughout the year in this setting so that everyone can hear, because I think that there's not always a bunch of eyes on the calendar unless we're going to make a shift. So it's kind of late in the year to be like talking about that or what the solutions are, or really helping everyone understand that this is what may have to happen, or maybe we've come up with a creative solution, but it might not make everyone happy. So what does that look like? So that's my only ask going forward. I think this makes sense, but if we can keep talking about it regularly throughout this year.
I think that's a great point. That's something that Shawnette and I have talked a little bit about too, is as these conversations are ongoing, coming back here to kind of give examples and be like, here's what this would look like, or here's what this would look like, because this is that public setting. Like you said, sometimes it feels like, we talk about it here, but then the committee goes and talks about it, and it's kind of in a black box for a while, and then all of a sudden it comes back out. And so let's not do that. Let's not do that.
And can I add just one other thing about the committee is, and I don't know what the right answer is, but maybe we look at expanding that and letting a few more audiences into that committee. Like, I really would love, if we're going to talk about moving finals, is that possible? That there are high schoolers involved in that conversation. It would impact them. I could say, oh, it'll be fine for you guys, but like, what do they feel? What do they think about? That would be beneficial to me.
And that would be on par with how the decision was made many years ago. There were high school students, parents, teachers that were all involved in that discussion.
If I could also comment, just to throw another monkey wrench into the whole spanner, the Facilities Task Force discussed today that in the past we've talked about our funding for major capital projects on an even level going forward. What we realized today, because of some of the funding requirements that we're going to have with the plans that we have moving forward and that we're going to be discussing about, we may have waves rather than a flat. So we may have years where we have significantly more spending than we would on a normal year, and then drop for a couple of years, and then significantly more. And in those years we have significantly more, that means we're going to have a lot more projects that have to take place during the summertime. We may need the hours at the end of August or in the middle of August in order to finish the projects. As we found out a couple years ago with Western, we ran really close, if I remember that correctly, right? So
Don't remind her.
So I would just keep that in your mind, because include the capital spending projects, because those are going to change from what we're doing today as we move in the future.
Yeah, that's a great point, Paul. And candidly, when we see other districts that move to a later start, there's every couple of years there's a district that has traditionally had an earlier start and then they switch to a later one. It's for just that reason, right? They've got some big projects coming up, and so that is something we always have to be mindful of. Oh, we're going to have a lot of stuff. We're not going to get that done by August, whatever. So you've got to change those dates. That's a good point.
Anybody else? Well, the calendar committee has recommended the later start, and we have a duty to approve that. Would anyone care to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Bonnie?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye. Item 4 on this agenda is board action for the 2025 financial report and annual comprehensive financial report. The audit was presented by Scott earlier today, for not the first time. Approval is recommended. Any discussion? A motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Bonnie. Moving on, item 8, work study topics and future action consideration. We get to do something here too. Item 1 is policy suspensions and procedures. And is there any discussion on that at this time?
I guess I would just share with the board here, and I'm happy to to talk through this briefly, if you would like. These two policies, 7:200 and 7:210, these are the two policies that we've spent a lot of time talking about as it relates to the potential use of a hearing officer for some disciplinary practices. Whether it's a suspension review or a formal, expulsion hearing, basically. And so the board's had a lot of good discussion on this subject over the last several months, and then we ultimately decided to take it to the policy committee, and the policy committee has had some great discussion on it. And after that discussion has brought forward these two policies for your consideration. Obviously, they're on this part of the agenda because we're not seeking any action today. But we do hope that you'll take a look and consider what we've put forward here, with the hope of bringing it to a future meeting for approval. In short, basically what we've discussed is in policy 7:200, which is our suspension policy, that because the policy is already differentiated based on law, candidly, between what we're expected to do if a suspension is 3 days or less, or if a suspension is 4 days or more. We mirrored that in the language, and basically said that for a suspension of 3 days or less, any review would be conducted by either the superintendent or a designee, that could be someone here, or it may be conducted by a hearing officer if the board has appointed one. And then for suspensions of 4 days or more, the review would be either conducted by the board or a hearing officer appointed by the board. In those instances of 4 days or more, if there was a review requested, you would rely on me to help determine if we were going to use that hearing officer, and then this was the key factor that we wanted to include here. If a review is conducted by either me or a designee here or a hearing officer, the person requesting the review would have the opportunity to provide a written statement to the board for the board's consideration, along with that final hearing officer's report. Because ultimately, remember, it's still the board's responsibility to make that decision. But you get a written report, and then if the individual felt compelled to share a written statement, they could. Then in 7210, it's again that policy. This is the one around potential expulsion hearings, right? This is a little rarer, but again, this says it would either be conducted by the board or a hearing officer if the board had decided to appoint one. And in this case, what we felt like would be appropriate to do, if a hearing officer is utilized, the student and his or parent would have the opportunity to provide a written statement, that same written statement, to the board for consideration, or would have the opportunity to appear in person on the night that the board is considering the hearing officer's report, and have the opportunity to provide that statement in person as well if they felt so compelled. So we thought that was it seemed like it met what the policy committee felt would work. So again, that's just for your consideration at this point, and then we would theoretically bring those back to a future meeting, and if those were approved, then we'd consider the board naming a hearing officer. So I don't know if there's any other things to say from the policy committee.
All I would add is that we've had some discussion about these topics in the November and October meetings, I believe they were. So you can always go back and watch those if you're interested on like some of the points we hit or how we kind of came to this point.
Any additional questions or discussion? This is a first reading, so there's no action required at this time, but thank you for your attention. Item 9, information. Number 1, board meeting presentation schedule. I think we've pretty much covered that. Item 2, FOIA requests and board correspondence. Item 3, suspension report. And 4, out-of-state trips. No discussion is required. The consent agenda. One of my...
So can I, on the board meetings and presentation schedule. Now that we have the next year's calendar set, can we update that for their next meeting so that we can see, remember it's, right now it has 23, 24, and 25. We should include 26 because we're gonna be there,
Yeah.
and what the schedule should be.
Yeah, we can look at that.
Okay, thank you.
Wait,
Okay.
Make one fall off.
There is 26 on there though.
Yeah, somewhat.
Not next school. You're talking about next school year, 26, 27.
Oh, I'm
Can we
sorry.
start to
Okay.
build in
I'm
26,
sorry.
27 on there?
You're-
Yeah.
Yeah. I got you.
Okay, anything else? Very good. Consent agenda, personnel report, resignations, retirements, leave requests, changes in assignment, full-time equivalent, new hires. Item 2, monthly financial report for November. Item 3, gifts, grants, and bequests, $950 from the Chadiez family for MCS music program. And item 4, intergovernmental agreement with Geneva Public Library. Approval is recommended. Oh, okay, let me get to that other piece of paper. Request to purchase, oh, that little thing. Request to purchase, $733,487.50 CDW government for student devices. That's what I get for printing them. So, with the addition of item 5, any discussion? A motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Board member comments and reports. Who'd like to go first?
I'll
I
go.
can-
Oh,
Oh, go ahead, Dan.
all right, I'll be real brief. Hang on, let me get my notepad out here. Let's see. Couple things. Some of you saw the Geneva, the GTV, that Anchorage that Jackie and I did. So is Anchorage a word? Anyway, I just used that word.
It's a place.
Yeah.
It's a place for sure.
And what a great experience. Yeah, I just realized that I'm not meant for TV. All right, and then Yuletide, that was awesome. Like, so talented, our music students, and yeah, another great event. And then was able to catch some of the basketball games. So yeah, happy to do that. So.
I'm next. I was able to attend the Technology Task Force meeting with Mike Wilkes and his team. He will be joining us in January to present the preliminary tech plan. He provided some updates on one particular thing I thought was really great to mention. Tonight we had a lot of information on this being good stewards of finances across the board. And in our meeting, Mike had talked about how he really keeps an eye out for when we have to purchase new devices and shortages versus prices going up, and making recommendations when to purchase and how to purchase those to be a good steward of our money that goes towards that. So I really appreciate the update with that. We also talked about, I know we had the intergovernmental agreement with the Geneva Public Library, and how we went through what that web page is going to look like for parents and how it's going to be that opt-out, and we were talking through how the wording of that to make sure parents were clear, so they understood this wasn't a second card and all that. So it was really great to go through all of that. I also had the chance to attend the Harrison Street School PTO meeting on November 18th. They have a great turnout. It was really cool. It was this huge long table in their library with so many people active. One thing that really stood out was they had a group of 5th graders make a banner for the PTO all on their own, unprompted, thanking them for all of their work and contributions to their school. I thought that was really telling of the work that their PTO does. And just shout out to that entire group. They went through a whole list of events and things that they do for their school, and it was really wonderful to learn about. I wanted to give a big thank you to Anne Scalia and her team for the co-teaching presentation. I think it's really remarkable, the pedagogy that goes behind how we deliver education and the thoughtfulness of our teachers and the time they spend learning and training in these methods and models. And to see, I don't know what anybody else thought, but the excitement that entire team brought to what they were talking about really speaks to what their passion is. And the comment about, when you've made a difference and that's what brings you back to the table, I really saw that come through. And then finally, I know, Andy, you had mentioned in your update, this is a challenging time of year. In particular, I think this was a challenging weekend for news and a reminder of also the time of year that we're in. And there's a lot happening, and that's on a global scale, but personally, this time of year can be a really great reminder of loss and can be difficult for our community members. So just a reminder to everyone to take care of yourselves, check in with one another. And I wanted to just wish everybody who celebrates a happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, and a safe New Year.
I had the opportunity with Willard to be at the Parent Teachers Advisory Committee that we had a couple weeks ago. We reviewed the suspension history and data, which was quite interesting. Also discussed the current restraint and timeout procedure implemented in the district, which for somebody that had never listened to that before, that was very interesting. But we also talked about the preliminary discussion on a new socio-emotional survey that will take place in the coming year with the in the new Pandora system. So I think that was very good. We're going to be having another meeting coming up, I think, in February. I think is when we scheduled. So that was interesting. We had a facilities task force meeting today, and as I mentioned, the plan that we originally had for even distribution of capital over every year is probably, with the different funding methods that we're planning to talk about, may not be the most efficient, or what has to happen based on what the regulations are with that funding. So we'll have to take that into consideration. We also will be meeting next month with to discuss here. We'll have the facilities task force, I think his name Brian, here to present all the bids that were presented and accepted for this summer's work. So they have already been leased, they've already been let out. We have to approve, and we've chosen, and well, we have to approve them, and that will come at the end of January. I want to say thank you to Todd for finishing up the budget again in a great way, and just for that, thank you. He gets to start it all over again in 2 weeks. So we'll go from there for him. But thank you, Todd, on that. And finally, we were on the 13th of November. It was Larry, myself, and Andy were at the PTO meeting at Geneva Middle School South. They have a lot of great programs planned. They have a Move-A-Palooza to get kids off the phones and get them to move in the fall. And they have a big readathon in the spring. And they asked us to make sure if there's anything that we can do to support that and to publicize that, to do that.
All right, thanks. Did want to congratulate all the students that we saw tonight. It was nice to see a balance of athletics, academics, and the arts being celebrated. I did also get to go to the Yuletide celebration concert last week. It was fantastic, as always, a highlight of the season for me. The GTV anchors, that was a lot of fun. One thing I wanted to pass along that I didn't realize is that you record that. We start, like, we're at 8:45 that morning when we actually started the recording. It goes live that same morning, 45 minutes later. So by 9:30, it was being broadcast. So I had no idea that they did it that quickly. and turned that around. And the students were fantastic. They wrote the scripts and helped us, held our hands to get through that. But that was just a lot of fun. So if we have a chance to do that again, I recommend other people volunteering too, because it really was fun. And I think that was it. And my report.
Yeah, I just want to give commend the co-teaching model. I had read something about it, but to see it in full relief was quite good. And again, it's the enthusiasm. That's what we used to call back in the, dating myself, back in the 70s, the joy of teaching. We don't hear that so much anymore, but I think I could see that they really seem to have the joy of teaching. And that's a very important thing, because we don't need burnout. Another thing is, I would say that I was thinking of at least two of the ones that were honored, the students for their awards in athletics and academics. I watched them grow up, you know. It just shows me that one in particular, not calling names, but one of the ones that had the perfect score, I remember he was that big, you know. So this is really quite full circle to see them grow and thrive in this community. So just very enlightening, and I think it bodes well for the future. They're walking, how do we say, they may be walking sign, what do you call it?
Billboard?
Billboard, that's what I'm trying to say, billboard, yeah.
Thank you.
Just a few things from me. Thank you so much to all of our presenters tonight. I think it was a lot of wonderful, well thought out information, and really valuable for all of us to hear that. So thank you. Congratulations to all of the students that we were able to recognize tonight, and to all the students that don't get to come, we don't get to meet because maybe they didn't make it to state or they didn't get a 36. I know our students, like all of our students, are working so hard, and this is the week that our high schoolers, it really all comes together. So good luck to everybody in their finals. And I really just hope that everyone in our schools and our community has a really wonderful, restful break, because I know that it's a tough time of year, but also just everything kind of comes together at this point. So we just need a little time for to refresh. We did have a policy committee meeting today as well. So we do have these two policies that are in the first reading. This meeting, we will have more policies added during the next meeting as well, so just a heads up that more is to come, and then we'll have more still after that. So just a little warning there, but please bring any questions about the policies that we have to approve next month to the meeting, and we're happy to answer any questions. But thank you all.
Thank you, Stephanie. I would have to say that that's not on my Christmas list for more policies, but if it's what you have to do, it's what you have to do. Everybody's comments were wonderful. I certainly appreciate them. I attended the IASB conference in Chicago, which was very meaningful, with a number of excellent presentations, some of which were almost brought me to tears, and one which made me laugh quite a bit. So you get a spectrum. The facilities task force meeting earlier today has some good news, which I'll basically save for later, but I think things are moving in the right directions. I, with Paul, attended a PTO meeting, which I found meaningful, and I enjoy meeting the people always. And that's about it, except I want to re-emphasize what Molly said. I think this is a time of year for careful reflection and consideration of those gifts that we've been given and those things that we can do to make the world better, and we all need to commit ourselves to that goal, I believe. That gets us to the next page. Executive session. We have need to go into executive session, and I'll read the subject first. Executive session to consider matters pertaining to the placement of individual students in special education programs and other matters relating to individual students, litigation when action is brought against, affecting, or on behalf of particular public body has been filed or is pending before the court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body binds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the finding shall be recommended and entered into the minutes of the closed meeting. And if binds is wrong, then that's a typo, I guess. Anyway, so we have need to go in executive session. We'll take a break for a minute or two if anybody needs a drink, and then we will
start. I would like to thank everyone for attending. I know we have to have a motion to adjourn and a roll call. So, anyone care to make?
Motion
So-
to go into executive session.
Second.
Aye.
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 I'm gonna have a slice of cold.
Yeah, where is that? Next to the microwave, right? Yes.
Oh, this is the minute. Yeah.